Hey,
Hey,
you're not Ricky.
I'm back.
Oh my goodness. Man, it's the one and only Florida man children out there. We got so many this is going to be a great show, and we have the Florida man and we have another guest tonight. Not only that, we have a new sponsor, which I am totally psyched. Of course, the sponsors have been covering us throughout the Kenobi series. I don't know about you, but a lot of times in my life, what do I do when, I don't know, somebody uses the force and scrape me through a lava pit? I don't know. What do you do? What do you do when someone, I don't know, cut your hand off your arm? I don't know. What are you going to do? I don't have a back to tank. Do you? When I'm on the go, do I have a back to tank? No. But what I do have is back to on the go. Back to on the go, always with you wherever you go. Brought to you by Bacta. I think we just lost somebody from that advertisement. I think
I gotta go. No, I'm just saying.
It's the Speaking Nerdy podcast. My name is Mike Schilling, and usually my good friend Mr. Ricky Pope is here. But tonight, filling in for him is the Florida man, a.k.a. Todd Vissy. That's the, yes, Todd V, anyway. And tonight, we also have a special guest. We have a special guest with us tonight, and it is Darryl McCarty. Hey! Welcome, Darryl, to the show. Nice to have you. Our Star Wars correspondent. Good. Tonight we're going to talk about episode 5 of Kenobi, and wow, everything kind of gelled together. And before we get started, we love our audience, and we just want to make sure tonight, we're going to make sure that that we do have this is going to not be spoiler free, so let's give our alert. So tonight we will have spoilers because we're going to have a conversation about Kenobi episode 5. So as we get into it, usually this is the part of the show we talk a little bit about some nerdy news. I don't know if there's anything out there you guys want to touch on, anything you've heard in entertainment lately. I know Waki Takiki, whatever his name is, the guy from Mandalorian, and he's working on a brand new show. Actually, a movie series, is a trilogy is actually he's going to work on for Star Wars, and he's going to use new characters. What do you think about that? What do you think about going a total different direction to a different universe, still in the Star Wars universe, but kind of, I don't know, getting away from the Force?
I like it because we have very few, shows with, in reality, there's very few Force users out there.
Yes.
And
Right.
so, why not have more shows with, other people, these, heck, we have, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of clones that we can use. So, yeah, I think it's be really cool.
Hello, Mr. Dan. Thank you for joining the show. Mr. Dan Leckie is has his own podcast, Star Trek podcast, and I need to make sure I write it down because we like to help promote other podcasts out there. But anyway, Dan, if you would pop up in the comments your podcast name again, I like to let the people know about it because you guys do some really great stuff. So anyway. Yeah, I think it's interesting. We talked about an article last week. It was old news, but I wanted, especially since we have you on the show, Darryl. Kathleen Kennedy said apparently they learned their mistake with Solo, saying they will no longer have other actors portraying any original Star Wars characters. What do you think about that?
I like it because, Solo was cool. Like it was a neat movie. It had some really cool stuff to it, but it wasn't the same Han. Like it didn't have the same chemistry as everything else, and so I get it because it didn't work. So at least they're learning. So. That's good news.
What do you think about Glover, though? He's really talented actor, and I really thought he did a good job playing Lando.
Yeah. He was one of the shining, spots of that movie. So
yeah, exactly. Todd, what do you think about Kathleen Kennedy's take on this? Do you think we still have room to, I don't know, have younger actors play these roles? Or another thought too, since Lucas films, Disney has gotten so much better in doing digital enhancements to recreate these actors, and between archives of voice video and voices and being able, like what Princess Leia they did in Rogue One, which was kind of an early adaptation of this technology, and of course we've seen it in The Mandalorian with Luke Skywalker, and I'm sure we're going to see more of it from the Disney camp. But yeah, for me, what do you think, Todd, about all of this?
Well, I kind of agree with Darryl about having other characters, or other actors and actresses play the characters. They're all going to bring their own kind of interpretation.
Yeah.
Which may or may not line up with the canon or the performances of previous actors. And I try to watch, when I'm watching these shows, I try to watch them on their own.
Yeah, exactly.
I try not to hold them up against the others, because when you start doing that, you can't really enjoy.
Yeah, exactly.
You take it for what it is, and you watch it. And I personally have enjoyed all the movies. I guess my standards are low.
No. I had to look at Han Solo the same way. I had to put Harrison Ford out of my mind. It was fun. I enjoyed it. Did it take me out of it?
To Darryl's point,
yeah.
If you hold them up against each other, that's
hard to do. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to say a shout out to Dan Leckie. He runs a Star Trek podcast, Subspace Chatter, and X-Files podcast. It says Trust #1, the X-Files podcast, which I need to check that out. And a Star Trek website, warpfactortrek.com. Each project is coordinated, great teams of people. Again, you can check out his stuff at warpfactortrek.com, warpfactortrek.com. Check out his stuff. For you Trekkies out there, it's a treat. So so anyway, I totally agree, and so I'm kind of back and forth on it. It's really hard. It kind of takes you out of it a little bit when you watch, like, for instance, Solo. Han Solo. That's young Han Solo, but it doesn't really resonate with me. But I had to do the same thing. I had to watch it for what it was.
Yeah, and my wife loved it.
You're like, yeah. I think Star Wars fans can be the most toxic and the biggest fans at the same time. But we had a young man on the show one time, and he says all Star Wars is good Star Wars, which I like that attitude. But we still have a right to make these our impressions and what we think. And I'm kind of sad. I think there's a way that we can do some of the the prequels through other actors, but honestly, with the technology that's getting better and better, I can see them recreating some of the older actors, like Mark Hamill in his prime, and Han Solo, and different characters like they did. I refer back to Rogue One, and of course that was the beginning of the technology. And I think each time they've gotten better. I mean, you can, some of the effects kind of take you out of it, but I think they're doing it better. I think they're doing better in presenting, a better product. Dan says, I enjoy all the Star Wars films, just not the Ewoks. Ditto to that. Let's just have Jawas. There you go. That's funny. So, and we also have, let's see here.
Correct.
And, so anyway, Sorry, we're just looking at comments.
We got a bunch of people popping up.
Yeah, let us know who you are, where you're from. We'll pop your
Greg.
comments. We'll pop up your comments. And anyway, we hope that you guys let us know your comments. We're going to talk about Kenobi episode 5 tonight, and we're going to talk about it. So it's not going to be spoiler free. We're going to talk about a little bit of what we thought about episode 5, character creation.
Hickey wants to be a Grand
Hey,
Inquisitor.
Hickey, he wants to be a Grand Inquisitor. Well, you know, my friend, so does Riva, and we saw how that turned out for her. So hopefully you won't end up that way, but welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. It's awesome. I love this community. So, you know, usually we'll do a stupid news, but tonight I'm going to do something a little special on that. So let's go ahead and kick off. Well, what we like to say, I'm going to scroll down because I have a long scroll down, by the way. I blame Ricky Pope for this. But anyway, let's go ahead and kick it off. This is the Weird and Stupid News with your host, Mike Schilling, and with the correspondent Florida man himself, Todd V. I miss Ricky doing the introductions. He is the man. He's the radio man. So, Todd, he is our Florida man correspondent. And today he's going to touch on some Florida man highlights and some headlines. Go ahead, Mr. Todd. Read a few up there for us.
Okay. Well, first up, we have Florida man attacked during a selfie with a squirrel.
How did that turn out?
I guess he was a nut. I don't know.
Oh, man. I can't
apparently
find my
the
symbols.
Squirrel chased him down the boardwalk. So that's
I guess he was
way to go,
looking
buddy.
for some nuts. Okay, there we go.
And let's see. What's another one here? This is a good one.
Yes, go ahead.
A man who purchased a hamburger at Burger King.
Now, mind you, these are real headlines, by the way, folks.
Yes,
this is
they are
real
real
headlines from
headlines.
Florida, the great state of Florida out. Okay, go ahead, sir.
He claimed that they put dirt on his food.
Yes.
And upon investigating said dirt, it turned out it was seasoning.
Seasoning.
Mm-hmm.
So
And the best part,
yes.
he was a police detective.
Well, the Academy.
Florida's finest.
World's finest.
Yes, Florida's finest.
That's right. And
we also had 1,000 of our gun owners in Florida had planned on shooting down Hurricane Irma.
How did that work out for them?
They missed.
Such a large target to miss.
Yeah. Yes. Another one that we had is there's a Florida man. He was tired of waiting at the hospital, so he stole the ambulance and drove home.
Well, I mean, that's very convenient, and it's nice that they have a Lend-Lease program like that in their healthcare system, so that's pretty awesome.
And another perk is he didn't have to stop at the red lights.
Well, there we go. I think we're almost done with the Florida man here.
Oh, wait, I got one more.
One more?
One more. Apparently, a Florida man was arrested for attacking his girlfriend with fried chicken at a restaurant.
Oh, that sounds odd.
He was arrested for assault and battery.
Battery. Oh,
Battery,
my goodness.
fried chicken. It was extra crispy and
man.
nearly.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Yeah, well. Wow. Oh, man. Oh.
Never a dull moment in Florida, folks.
No, it's not. It's the boot of America. Well, I think I'm going to close it out on that. This is Weird and Stupid News and our correspondent, Mr. Todd V. from Florida himself. So, okay, the reason we're here is talk about episode 5 of the of Kenobi. And before we get started, I just want to share some of my thoughts on it. For one, I think this was the episode that everybody wanted. For me, anyway. We finally see Anakin outside the mask. And I think, honestly, I really, from my opinion, I think so far it is the best episode. I'm sure we can pick some flaws and we can go through some of this other stuff. But I think and of course, it was all a build up to this. And I had a lot of people I was talking to in the last podcast. We had comments where, people were really, coming against different episodes. And one thing I was talking with Ricky about is that this is not a episodic every week. Then, you have the new villain. This is a story arc. Obi-Wan is a story arc. So, for me, it's almost hard to rate a show per episode. It's almost like taking pieces from a movie and just saying, well, this sucked, this sucked, this sucked. Oh, this is good. Oh, I understand why they did this before. Okay, this movie is good. And so I think that's the hardest thing when you are when you're talking about a 6 episode show that is what is that, Jabba the Hutt? What was that? Oh my goodness. Oh
yeah, that's awesome.
He wants to be on the show too.
Oh man, well I saw it on the corner. I thought, what is that? Oh, that's hilarious. So anyway, I really enjoyed the show, and he can come on. I don't care. I first off, tell me your guys' impression of the show. We're going to talk about a lot of this, and we're going to examine some certain things. But share with me some of your, let's say, your thoughts that you have on top of your head right now.
Go ahead, Darryl. I want to hear what you got.
Well, like first off the top of my head about this episode, one, I didn't know that blaster wounds could cause you to bleed.
Well, that's true. I didn't realize that
either. High intensity laser that's just gonna go right through you. Most likely cauterize any wound that it touches, just like a lightsaber wound.
Yeah.
So bleeding out over a blaster wound.
Yes.
That's kind of iffy. Like, but other than that, I thought the episode was absolutely outstanding.
Well, yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to last week where, when Vader draws, or the week before, where, basically Vader uses the Force to drag Obi-Wan into the fire, to try to show him how painful the fire was. Is almost like a return. Here's a return favor for what you did to me. And of course, I think Tala basically shot some combustible tanks or something like that and caused a distraction. The robot came in, picked him up, and I guess Vader couldn't use the Force the second time to drag him back into the fire. But see, that's just part of it though, and we have to, and because Star Wars has always been like that. If you really look at the original series, there's always stuff that you can go back and go, well, why couldn't he done this? Jedi speed. Why couldn't he get there in time? And so it's just, it is what it is. But yeah, stuff like that, it does get my attention. So you're spot on that.
But no, the other thing was, I absolutely loved seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan training. I thought that was absolutely amazing.
That was good.
And then the other thing is to actually see Vader in his all-out glory of actually fighting, and not just fighting, like he did not draw his lightsaber, and he whooped her, whooped her. Like it just was it was just absolutely amazing.
Exactly.
It was
like
so
when he
cool to
grounded
see him
the shuttle.
just go out and just and he's not fighting against lasers and blasters and stuff like that. He's actually you actually see him fighting a real a Jedi going crazy.
Yeah, I really like how it started out. One of my favorite, for me, there's always a theme throughout the episode, and for me the theme is we're reminded of the wisdom in Obi-Wan in contrast to the blind rage of Anakin. My favorite thing about the show is I love especially how we see flashbacks to the early Clone Wars era as Anakin and Obi-Wan, they duke out, in the practice duel. It's as if they, they sprinkle it throughout the show. And I really like how they've done that. It's just, and it's always inconsistent with what's going on in the present. And it gives examples of areas where Anakin still has not learned from his master, and his master Obi-Wan knows how to manipulate that and use it to his favor. I mean, we really see a great tactician in Obi-Wan. I mean, it's in the scene where he takes charge in the with the refugees. You almost see General Kenobi rise again. There's this, it's almost like he becomes the man that he was and what they were hoping he would become, a leader. So I really like the character development. And I just love the flashbacks. I love panning back and coming back and forth. To me, it was just all about it. It's almost like there was like this saber duel, in space, far apart from one another, So anyway,
Dan and Greg both have good comments.
Yeah,
there.
Let's go ahead and let's kick that up. So here. I enjoy, Dan Leckie says, I enjoy finding out the backstory to the third sister. I did too. Up to this point, and again, I know there was a lot of backlash about the actress and Reva, and I think some of the, especially when it comes to the racial stuff, is totally stupid. Okay, this dumb. When I look at a cast, I don't care about anything but do they fit that character. Now, at first, I had a hard time with Reva, and it had nothing to do with gender, it had nothing to do with race. It's this: I just didn't feel like she fit an Inquisitor character. It just didn't feel right at first, and so it's kind of like I could see the character Finnick, Mei Ling, playing an Inquisitor. There's certain people I could see that. Now, as time went on, the character Reva grew on me, and in this episode, you really see the range of the actress. And it's not the actress. I think she's a fine actress, but I think up to this point, she finally was allowed to show her acting chops, and
Yes.
and I really love the scene because you can tell of course, spoiler, we find out she is the youngling that that was in the first episode where Anakin comes in with the clone troopers and basically massacres all the younglings. And for her, as she reveals to Obi-Wan, is that she played dead. Now she did. Now from my understanding, she did fall down. I think this is where I kind of have. From later on, before she's Vader meets with her again, didn't she get taken down by the saber also in the first episode, or was it that
she faked playing dead? I don't think she got hit by the saber.
Yeah, it just seems weird because they do a flashback at the very end, but we'll get that to here in a little bit. But you can see the remorse, the guilt, not being able to save the others that she referred to as her family. You can understand. You
also see when Vader in this episode, when he stabs her with the lightsaber, and they do the close up of her face, you see the same fear in her eyes when she was a youngling, as an adult. You can see it.
Oh, definitely, and it's one of. It was a great scene.
And I wanted to make a comment about Reva in this particular scene, the fight scene. And I don't want to take too long because Greg's got some good comments about Vader. But I didn't think, if you know Reva's character from the animated series.
Yeah.
She is a gymnastic nightmare to fight.
Yeah.
And this fight scene looked slow and clumsy to me, except for Vader. And maybe that was the point, because because Vader was besting her so bad. But when she was down doing the groundwork around his legs and stuff, it looked clumsy and slow. And I think that they could have used some, because people can only do so much, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
They could have used some kind of film editing where they sped her up a little bit, maybe, or she had the moves, she just didn't have the speed.
Yeah, I think some of the choreography. I mean, you think about the actor who played Darth Maul in Phantom Menace. I mean, I've never seen that kind of athletic energy. I mean, that was amazing to me. It was almost, and you find out later that's him. That was totally him doing it.
Yeah.
And it's very hard. I mean, that's to find somebody that strong and athletic to do it. I mean, I'm sure.
And like I said, she had the moves. It's just the speed. There wasn't the speed like in the. Of course, she can't move as fast as they do on the cartoons.
I want to go to Greg Berlin. Go ahead, Todd.
The only other thing I wanted to say was her costume was bad to the bone.
It was really good.
Yeah, that was really an awesome costume.
Yeah.
So go ahead with Greg.
Yeah, I'd like to go with Craig. He made a good comment. He said Vader just walking past people breaking necks with a snap of his fingers. The thing is, we really see for the first time how powerful Vader really is.
Yeah,
I mean, and he made a good point. And one of the biggest awe scenes for me, and I'm going to see if I can pull it up real quick, and you guys probably know which one I'm going to refer to, is where he uses the Force to pull the transport ship down. This is like if you're a gamer like me, this is like something out of the Force Unleashed game, where if you've played it before, you see the power of the Force bringing down
with like Star Killer.
Star Killer with the Death Star. I mean, it's such a great scene. Of course, this is an example of Kenobi outwitting his former apprentice, where they actually, one is a decoy and the other one where he takes off. I mean, Obi-Wan, I mean, he's a sly fox in this one. I mean, he really is. And
but you saw how Vader just ripped the ship apart.
Oh my goodness.
Effortlessly. Like that showed the true power of the Force that he had with him. Like he was there was anger and power behind every movement he made to pull that ship out of the sky, and then it was the coolest thing. One of the coolest things.
Yeah, there wasn't even a thought. I mean, he could just do it. And up till now, I don't know about you guys, I've never seen Vader this ruthless before. I mean, we talked, Greg talked about the snapping of the neck. I mean, when I saw that, I'm thinking, okay, they're not pulling any punches. This is the Vader, this is the angry Vader. I mean, if you're willing to snap a kid's neck on a Disney channel and people, I mean, on the streaming
and
service,
it was a kid.
Yeah, exactly. It was a kid. And so
it was a kid.
And that shows, all that did is exemplify how dark Vader, how dark, how dark path that Anakin went. I mean, it's one of those things where that right there, okay, this series is going to be for real. They're not holding back. Mm-hmm. And, like in Phantom Menace, actually Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin goes in and just mows down those younglings, you don't see anything. The door shuts and you hear some noise. But this time, there's no doubt about it what Anakin has done.
Yeah.
And and
Look
I
at
think
Greg's comment.
Let's see. Let's think.
The last one he just made.
I'm starting to think Vader might be a little evil.
We have a little bit.
Just a bit. Just a bit. So
and then Obi-Wan, when Obi-Wan saw him doing that stuff, he's like, "What have you become?" Yeah, he could.
Yeah,
first he thought he was dead, and then he finds out he's not dead, and then he sees what he's turned into, and he's like, "Oh."
But a great line is what you made me. And I think that's the guilt that Obi-Wan has all these years, is that he was his master. He was responsible to make him into the chosen one. He was the chosen one.
and Owen lets him know it too.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that wasn't a great scene.
He's
The
like,
guy,
that's one of the greatest lines ever.
the
It's like
actor who,
he trained his father. It's like,
you know, it's
it's such a
awesome.
hard day.
It's awesome how they brought the actors back, and the guy who played Owen. I mean, because really, I don't believe we ever heard any. This is the first time we've ever seen Owen, the actor, actually speak, and he is so good. He is so good in this. I mean, you know, later on we find out, you know, Reva finds out that, you know, from well, we'll talk to that later. But
and speaking of Vader,
yeah,
I wish they would make a series on just Vader.
I know they have a comic book series out, and just on
I'm at
Vader
Disney.
did. Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Hayden Christensen said he'd be up for it.
Well, and that would be
awesome. I think it would be good.
Yeah, I mean, deal with just the operations of the dark side. You know, deal with the operations of the everyday, and you know, and then also get personal with, because you know we never really see what goes on with the stormtroopers behind the scenes. You know, go from that aspect of it. You know, the stormtroopers. You know, do they deal with remorse? Do they deal with, you know, what do I get myself into? Kind of like Tala. Now, Tala is a perfect example of that. She went in as a recruit, thinking that the Empire was going to end all lawlessness. And, you know, she talks about it in a scene with Obi-Wan, explaining why she started to be kind of an underground railroad for Jedis and for Force-sensitive people, that she was in a situation where they rounded up people because she was told because they weren't paying their taxes, or they were in... And actually, they were rounding up Force-sensitive people and just massacre them. And once that happened, she said, I could never do it again. And of course, she kind of was the inside for the pathway. I mean, for the path. But go ahead.
Since we're talking about Tala, I've got to bring something up, and that is the scene where the stormtroopers where they breach into the facility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many stormtroopers were there? It's like a whole
there was a lot of
division.
Them, yeah.
Point blank range, they're not hitting anybody.
Well, you know, I mean,
did you see that?
Well, you know, they're
robot is point shoot hit, shoot hit. The stormtroopers.
Yeah, but you know, they're not clone troopers, you know.
Nobody's getting shot. It took until they got into the tunnel
before
one of them finally hit Tala, who's standing out there with no cover, you know. Oh, and I think it was an accident. I don't think I think somebody misfired and hit her. I don't know.
Actually, you know, I really like Tala, and from my understanding from the beginning, at first, and it was before COVID. I know they did production, and then COVID hit, and they had to stall production. And from my understanding in the writings was that originally she was supposed to be a love interest of Obi-Wan, and I could see that because they both had chemistry with one another. And then they decided not to go that route, I think, when they came back from production. Now, this is just hearsay and stuff that I've been reading in different sources. So, but I could see that happening. I really like Tala. She's a great character, and I think it's really great. I mean, she's so much for the cause, you know. Of course, this is probably a scene you're talking about where they're both taking on the onslaught of troopers coming in. But I think, what was his name? I know he was a loader. I had his information here. He was a Ned 8 was his name. Ned 8. And but one of the greatest scenes for me, and it was a good scene, I say the greatest scene, but when Tala was hit, he shielded. And you saw, you know, and I thought that, well, it was pretty cool. And of course, then she sacrificed herself with the thermal detonator. And now my wife said one thing. She said, "Why didn't she just throw it at them?"
Yes.
You know, why didn't she just throw it at them? You know,
because so Reva, the third sister, like one of the things with the Inquisitors is, yes, they're Force sensitive. Yes, they've been trained, but they're not much more powerful than a Padawan. Like at this point, like because and they were trained that way by design, because Palpatine still believed in the rule of two, and so did Vader, and so that's why, like, when Vader had in the expanded universe, Vader had Star Killer. We talked about the video game.
Exactly.
The Force Unleashed, Star Killer was Vader's apprentice, and so he wasn't supposed to be, like, he was supposed to be this big whole secret thing. And so, but these Inquisitors, that they were Force sensitive individuals. That they had a somewhat of a mastery of the Force, a minor mastery of the Force, and lightsaber combat is really it. So, if you're going to throw a thermal detonator at somebody, like, that's what I'm throwing one at. Like, there's a good chance they're not going to be able to do anything with it, because they don't really have that much Force sensitive training. Like, all their training went into lightsaber combat and harnessing their physical abilities.
Yeah. Greg and Jerry have a couple good comments.
Let's go ahead. Let's take a look at it here. From Greg Berlin. Is Stormtroopers white the opposite of... let me read this again. Is a Stormtroopers white the opposite of Star Trek red shirts?
Right.
One can't live and the other can't kill. That's
pretty much.
Have you seen the meme? Have you seen the meme where I've seen the meme where you had the red shirts and the
Stormtroopers
The Stormtroopers are missing them, but the red shirts are still dying. And I thought that was just...
Dan's got a follow up to that.
Dan was saying Star Trek Strange New Worlds is showing red shirts can't survive. Maybe it's time Star Wars proves Stormtroopers can have our perfect shots. I love that. That's ditto. Right. Ditto. And then Jerry had one. Jerry, that's not a ladder. I think it's...
Loader.
Oh, that's not a loader. I think it's a clone trooper in disguise. Exactly. Yeah, it's always funny because the reference of clones in Rebels, how they make a reference to, the poor armor and the abilities of stormtroopers. Of course, they're enlisted human beings or species, so as we all know. But
I think they missed a great comedy moment in the Star Wars movie where Finn's commander, I can't remember her name. She wore the silver clone armor.
Yeah.
Oh, Captain Phasma or Commander Phasma, whatever they called her.
She's taking laser blasts and they're just bouncing off. And then the white guys in the white armor are just dropping like flies. And they missed a perfect moment where the white guy, or the stormtroopers are like, what the what? It's like, where's the R&D at? I mean,
exactly. What we need is a lower deck style adult themed kind of cartoon about, like, stormtroopers and what it's like to live on the lower decks of an Imperial Star Destroyer.
That would be hilarious.
What they say, 3 kilometers long or something like that. From front to bow, and so having to walk that every day. Just to have just some crazy comedy, something like that. Talking about this stuff, where you have a stormtrooper sitting there, next to Phasma. Phasma gets shot and bullets are bouncing off. He's looking around, people to the left and right are getting killed, and he's like, "What's going on?" Like, freaking out because he doesn't know why. Bullets are bouncing off, or blaster bolts are bouncing off her, but everybody else is going down in one shot.
Yeah.
So, do you think Phasma's armor was part Beskar? I mean,
I don't know.
No.
That it was
maybe
coated with Beskar,
but like for something like that, you're talking a lot of like the Empire's given up a lot to put one person in that much Beskar, because it's pricey. Like that's worth a lot of money.
I want to touch on a scene that one of my favorite lines, and it was, Obi-Wan knew that Vader was coming to him, and he was going to surrender himself to Reva. Of course, you had Roken tells Kenobi he can't quit, and Obi-Wan says he wants me, and Roken says he'll keep coming, and Obi-Wan says that's why I must stop him. You know, and of course, I can't remember the guy who was the fake Jedi, the guy who played, and we've seen him before in other comedies. I think he was.
Oh,
in,
yes.
He was in the Eternals, and
yeah.
and of course, you know, he makes the comment, "How are you going to fight him? How are you going to fight him without a weapon?" And there, you know, and then Kenobi says, "There's other ways to fight," which is, and then later on, you go back to the flashback where, you know, Obi-Wan and Anakin is fighting, and you know, and Anakin loses his saber. I mean, Obi-Wan loses his saber, and he's having to have trying now to spar without a lightsaber. And of course, Anakin feels like he has the upper hand, which I think is cool. But my favorite line is when Obi-Wan is actually taken out in front of Reva. One of the lines I really like is when you know, Obi-Wan says, "You're not bringing him, you know, you're not bringing him to you." Let's say Obi-Wan says, "You're not bringing him to you. I'm bringing." Obi-Wan says, "You're not bringing me to him. I am bringing him to you." Sorry about that. Yeah. And that shows again Obi-Wan's as a master tactician. I mean, I didn't realize how much of a strategic person he was, and you know, the whole thing was to get Reva on his side. You know,
all that was without using Force suggestion and without using Jedi mind tricks and stuff like that. That was just him being a masterful tactician, playing on her weakness of wanting vengeance against Vader.
Yeah, that's kind of like, you know, when Kirk was going up against Khan, and Spock says, you know, Khan thinks two-dimensionally, you know, so he starts playing three-dimensionally, like the chess in Star Trek, which is three-dimensional chess. And you know, so Obi-Wan's like a chess master, and Vader was playing like checkers.
Well, I mean, Vader was totally, you know, his hatred towards his former master. I mean, that, you know, and there were several times, even in the lessons, we do flashbacks on, you know, Obi-Wan says you're too focused on the victory, you know, and you're blinded by that, you know, and it's true. And of course, all these lessons that Anakin didn't learn by became on actually it was a plus for Obi-Wan in the current time. And the thing back with Reva is interesting to me is, you know, from the beginning, I always thought this was going to be a story arc, a redemption story arc for her. And I always had a feeling that she was one of the younglings. And she mentioned in earlier episodes that everything was taken away from me. I once had a droid, you know, if you remember some of the episodes a while back. And of course, we all realize now that in this episode, yes, she was a youngling and her family was taken from her. But you can tell there's some anger, animosity towards Obi-Wan. I know that the main focus of getting Obi-Wan is to rise to the ranks to get close to Vader so she could actually, you know, have revenge on him, what she did to him and those around her as younglings. But you can tell there was a little bit of animosity there because she blames Obi-Wan because this was she says, "This is your apprentice. Why didn't you stop him?" And then not only that, where were you? You know, where were you? And
I was trying to remember where was he when that happened?
He was fighting General Grievous.
Yeah, he was fighting General Grievous, and I think eventually his biggest thing was to get, you know, he was with Padme while she was giving birth, and his main goal was to get the two children away from Vader. Of course, we all know that Senator Organa, you know.
Yeah, because because he was with Commander Cody fighting General Grievous during when Order 66 went off. And so when Order 66 was initiated, Anakin was still on Coruscant.
Yeah, exactly.
Dan's got an interesting question.
Here we go. I'm going to let you read it, Darryl. Can you see that comment?
I've heard Darth Maul was originally to have been Obi-Wan Kenobi, or been in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
So were all the Vader scenes in the show to have featured Maul instead? That's the first I've heard of Darth Maul was going to be, and it'd be really cool if somehow he made an appearance.
I think that would be really
especially
good.
Considering, you know, how tied into the Clone Wars Darth Maul's story was to Anakin and Obi-Wan, and especially later on with you know, Ahsoka and Maul, running from each other, or running, with each other on order, during Order 66.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, like, I think it'd be cool to see Maul, pop up in Obi-Wan or even Ahsoka.
Were you like me when you saw, and I forget what episode it was, where Reva basically killed the Grand Inquisitor? And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if we're going to stay in canon, we know that he is in Rebels, which chronologically follows, this show. And so we all know at the end, guess who pops out? The Grand Inquisitor. And I kind of had a feeling, a lot of people, there was a lot of stuff on Reddit where they talked about, well, his species has 2 stomachs, and which is true. I looked it up, and his species does have 2 stomachs. So he has survived from it. But the interesting thing is Vader was like 10 steps in front of her. She was a tool to the very end. And she didn't realize it till the very end when he struck her down in her attempt to try to assassinate him from behind.
Yeah.
And even then, he just showed how powerful he was. And he was just basically just playing with her, teasing her, because he could have just broke her neck right then, but he was making a lesson. And I love the part where before he puts his saber through her stomach or chest, I can't remember which part that was, he said, stomach. He says, "You think I didn't know who you were?" And you didn't. And basically saying, you think,
he knew she was a youngling.
Yeah, I knew you were a youngling. I knew you were just pretending. And really good. It's really good. So
it was almost like, so now I'm correcting the mistake that I made all these years ago, whenever I should have struck you down then. That's kind of
was it
came about it.
But was it a mistake, Darryl? Did when he said, "Did you think I didn't see it?" Was he talking about when he was looking at her as a youngling? I'm going to use you as a tool.
Oh yeah, I think that's a great example. Yeah,
is that what he's talking about, or is he talking about her betrayal at the end? I think he knew all along.
He may have.
Well,
yeah.
Like,
just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I think one of the things that came up, a great scene was when they had, all the stormtroopers outside of the door entrance, the hangar entrance into the, I guess the bunker, if you want to call it. And Obi-Wan makes a truce, and he wants to negotiate and talk with Reva. And so here they are. You see them on each side of the wall, each side of the door. And, as they're talking, Obi-Wan sensed, how did you know Vader was Anakin? He would have kept that from you. And that's how it evolved, where, Anakin knew that she was a youngling, and that's how she found out Anakin was Vader. And that's a great scene. There's so many great scenes in this, and there's so many types and shadows that you see in this. And I'm sure we could dissect it and get a ton of Easter eggs out of this. And, for me, looking at this, again, I keep talking about the flashbacks to the Clone War eras, but I just love how they went back and forth from, the sparring was the flashback to the lessons between the master and the apprentice. And then the present was where the former apprentice still didn't learn from the master, and the master knew how to use his former a Padawan's weakness against him. And
Jerry's got a good point about what I was talking about, actually backing Darryl up about how Obi-Wan said, Vader said Obi-Wan was wise to use you against me. So no, he didn't know. It was at the end, like he didn't see it come until the end, like Jerry says. So good point, Jerry.
I mean, it's a good point. It's a good point.
Good observation.
And it's a good observation. I don't know. There's still some stuff there where I think Vader. I don't know. I still think there's a bit of it where Vader. He was 10 steps of her the whole time. I mean, how much did the Inquisitor? I like to know how much of it was planned, from when it was planned. Like, was it? I'm sure it wasn't planned for the Inquisitor to be, struck. Or I don't know. I like to know what happened behind the scenes, but of course,
well, they said that they used her rage.
Well, yeah, of course
they used her. Yeah. Her rage was the tool to find Kenobi. Her obsession and her rage.
I'm just curious how the Grand Inquisitor played in all of this, and but anyway, that's all. It's really.
Dan had a question about the episode, the 6th episode.
Let me see if I don't see the comments here. I am not seeing it.
It's 1, 2, 3, 5th one from the bottom.
Oh, okay. Here we go. He says, Dan says, there's also been some news that the forthcoming 6th episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi will be really long, an hour and a half, has been mentioned. Do you think this is good or not so good thing? I don't know. I haven't heard anything about the time on it. Have you, Darryl? Have you heard anything about how long?
No. How many episodes are we looking at this season?
This is one more. We've got next week is the last one.
Oh, so the next week's the finale, and it's an hour and a half.
Finale.
Oh, I love it. Then I think that's absolutely great.
Yeah, I think they should take as much time as they need.
That's fine. Yeah,
I'm fine with that. Of course, again, when I found out The Mandalorian, it always seems like the episode before you thinking, how can they tie all this together within 45 minutes? And they happened to do, and they did that with The Mandalorian. I mean, it was just like, okay, wow, okay, they did it. Would I liked it to be longer? Yes, I would have liked it to be longer. And I would like to see it, be a longer episode. Of course, the first they ended up having the first 2 episodes back to back. So I don't know. I hope it's a longer episode. I hadn't heard anything about it, but I think it would be good. Also, too, I've been hearing some rumors because originally Obi-Wan was supposed to be just a one-time deal. It was just supposed to be, this is a story arc and we're done. But there's been some chatter that we might look at another season. What do you think about that?
Oh, that would be absolutely amazing. Like was mentioned earlier, to me, any Star Wars is good Star Wars.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I love Star Wars, so if I can get more Star Wars, I'm going to love it. Like, am I going to criticize bad Star Wars? Yeah, if I think it's bad, I'll criticize it like everything else. But any Star Wars is good for me. So I say, keep on keeping on. And so, maybe they can tie in some more, if they do another season, tie in some more of that stuff with Darth Maul and, Ahsoka and, things like that.
Jerry made a good comment here. I think he was referring to something I was saying. He didn't have to be 10 steps away. He's arrogant in his power, and that was his downfall. And that's a really good observation, Jerry. That's actually a really good. And what you touched on has been the theme throughout this entire episode. Because of Vader's arrogance, Obi-Wan's been able to, use the knowledge that he has of his Padawan to, expose his downfalls and his vices. And so it's a good point. Yeah.
Which is probably only going to make Vader even stronger after this, because from what I had heard, like the way Hayden Christensen had kind of said in an interview I had read, said, but it's something like this is where you see him basically
Yeah.
killing Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to kill Anakin off. Like this is Vader's arc, is
Yeah.
Anakin's gone. And so that I think that's kind of what we're seeing here. And so
Were there any
it's
scenes
good.
that was there any scenes, because there were scenes, it's interesting behind the mask, kind of like with the Mandalorian. Pascal, he did a great job of, you couldn't see his expression, but it was almost like you could behind the mask. And for some reason, for Vader, sometimes, I don't know why, I'm thinking that maybe for a slight moment behind the mask, there's a little conflicted at moments. And maybe it's just my imagination, but there's this maybe moments of him thinking of his master and then quickly getting angry. It's almost like there's this, because the dark side is not control emotions. It's almost like a quick bipolar. It's from my, especially, we find out that later in Return of the Jedi, where, he struggles. Do he save his son he saves his son Luke or not?
He tells Luke, "You were right about me."
What's that? I'm sorry.
He tells Luke at the end, "You were right about me."
Yeah.
And that he was conflicted, that there was still good in it.
Yeah, well, and his mother said the same thing at birth before she died. She said, and there is good in him, and he was telling Obi-Wan that. And of course, we see that in, actually, what did you think? It reminds me of Episode 1. What do you think about the entire prequel recap? I mean, in Episode 1, they took the entire prequel series and they did a recap on it and I guess for people who that doesn't follow Star Wars, or just watching it, or as, I don't know, a reminder to some of us who haven't seen the films in a while. What do you think about all that content before?
I thought it was fine. Like, I guess that there have been I guess a lot of gripes that people have kind of come out about, like, different things. And as I'm watching, I'm like, I don't see a lot of what people see. Like, I didn't have a problem with the recap, because, like you said, there are people who just got Disney Plus and they're like, oh, The Mandalorian's their first introduction to Star Wars, and so hey, so now we're going back and it's like, oh, what's this Obi-Wan thing? Well, here's a recap of what happened before, so they don't have to go back and watch, 3-hour movies, to figure out what happened.
Well, as a Star Wars nerd myself, I appreciate it. It was a refresher.
Yes.
I said, oh yes, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. Yes. And it brought clarity to me, and go, okay, man, I remember all this stuff now, And so I liked it. And, it's funny is that throughout the series, if you go on Reddit and some of these other areas, there's a lot of different haters. And I'm just saying, people chill. I mean, let's look at the history of Star Wars. Okay. I mean, even from the coveted, New Hope series, if you look back and you want to poke holes into it, there's several things you can talk about there. It's not about poking a hole into Star Wars. It's enjoying the story and it's the brilliance of it, of the storytelling and the fantasy, and it's what it is. It's fantasy.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about documentary here. And so I think that's one thing, and that's why I like the comment of all Star Wars is good Star Wars. Now, I mean, there's some stuff, but it's funny because for me, I used to be I want to say a hater of Phantom Menace, because, I wasn't a fan of the young actor and all that. But after
I'm going to be a Jedi.
After watching this, now here I go. After watching the sequels, I had a greater appreciation of the prequels. And I know that the sequels, the Rise of the Skywalker trilogy, that's a whole different bag there. But I had a bigger, I had a bigger appreciation for the Phantom Menace And the animated series really made me more interested in the prequel movies, that is, because it was the filler. It was a whole story. It started to make sense to me. It had more depth to it. Now, someone asked me it from work, and it's a good question because, again, this is how we look at it. We have the people like me who grew up and watched the original trilogy, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. Then you have the other generation who's seen for the first time Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. And so, of course, the New Hope people go, oh, yeah, that's crap compared to what to our Star Wars. And then I know a lot of people who go, wait a minute. I said, have you not seen the lightsaber duels? Have you not seen how great the effects are compared to the crap that you guys had when you were old? You old farts, But then are you going to, and that person told me, do you think that's going to be the same with people who, first time seeing the sequels? And of course, for me, it's like, oh, and of course, my answer is no. But I don't know. Do you think that generation's going to look at the sequels, no matter what you feel? Do you think they're going to look at the sequels and go, well, that's way better than the prequels and the original? You kind of get where I'm going with this?
And I think a lot of that will probably be because of the technology and the way that we were, able to digitally do stuff now that, even that we weren't able to do, like, even though, the prequels were, so, they were really beyond their time and groundbreaking and CGI effects and stuff like that at the time. And then you go back to the original series, the exact same thing, the groundbreaking effects, everything else. And so, it seems like every Star Wars is new groundbreaking effects, taking it to the next level. So,
and then the re-release,
so in some ways it's better.
Yeah. Oh, the re-release. Exactly.
Where he went in and added the stuff he couldn't do. He just couldn't physically do it.
Yeah. And he got a lot of flack for that too.
Yes, he did.
So Lucas
I went and saw that at the theater. I don't know if you guys did. And the fans were screaming. It was because it was great. They were cheering and clapping. Are we talking
about are we talking the special edition that he did?
The re-release where he added the effects, the extra ships and the battles and all.
I think for me, I was just excited to see it on the big screen again. It wasn't so much that he, I like the idea that he cleaned it up and he digitized it. There was some stuff that I thought was stupid, like the scene where Han Solo steps on the tail of Jabba the Hutt. I mean, there's some stuff that could have been left out. There was some stuff like Cloud City. It just didn't look real with people walking around. I totally understand adding stuff, but it took me out of it because it didn't, special effects wise, it just wasn't good, and that was my problem with it. Do I think it should have been cleaned and remastered and then maybe masterfully maybe add a few things? I think, I think that was great. But I think George Lucas tried so hard to put so much in the special editions that he couldn't do before that. I think he went overboard on CGI. I think he went overboard during a time where technology wasn't, we were just experimenting. CGI was probably, in its early infancy or maybe just the middle, but it's not like it is now. Let's think about it. Like, the production on Disney Plus for Star Wars is amazing. If you've never seen the documentary behind the scenes of The Mandalorian, where they talk about the dome that they use to actually shoot all of this, like The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and all of that, watch that. It's a fascinating documentary. The technology that they use, which blows me away because this is movie quality production. Kenobi is. Personally, I think that the Star Wars franchise, instead of the heck with spending all this money doing these big trilogies, we can just continue to make these series in this high quality production like we're doing now. And I would be happy with it. I mean, I would be happy with it.
Well, these series now seem to be resonating better with fans.
Yeah.
Like from newer fans to hardcore fans.
Oh, I agree.
The series resonates better across the spectrum than the movies have between any of them.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. And I like it because we get some really good bite size and plus we get character development and we dig into the characters and know them more. I mean, like, I mean, I don't care, you know, there was a lot of haters with the Book of Boba Fett. I enjoyed it. Okay.
I did too.
I enjoyed it. You know, and I really, I hope we see, I hope we, you know, I hope we see some more of it. Maybe not so much more of the Book of Boba Fett, but there was some stuff in there that I would have liked to see, like Vant Cobb. I want a Vant Cobb series. You know, the actor from Justified. I mean, he plays. You know, I mean, he was at the very end. You know, he was in the Bacta tank. You know, and which I thought was, you know, his stomach being reconstructed by the modder. You know. And by the way, if you don't have a Bacta home, well, you can always have Bacta on the go. That's right, our sponsor, Bacta on the go. You can take Bacta everywhere. Flames on fire, someone cuts off your arm, just having a bad day? Well, Bacta on the go will get you back on your feet. Remember, you don't need Bacta at home when you have Bacta on the go. So anyway,
Jerry refers to that as Big Bacta.
Big Bacta. That's funny.
Like Big Pharma.
Big Pharma. Hey, I tell you. So anyway, I really like the series. I'm like Dan Leckie was mentioning earlier. I do hope. I mean, he was mentioning, you know, what do you think if it was a longer episode? Would it do it justice or not? I would, being a nerd of Star Wars, I like to see. I would like to see a longer time, and I would like to see, nothing. I don't want to see anything rushed. Let's put it that way.
Right. Take the time you need to do the story.
So, but it's interesting because, you know, in the Rebels, you know, Obi-Wan duels with Darth Maul. Now, I don't think this is going to happen here, but that would be interesting if they did a sequel, because I could see them bringing Darth Maul into the picture, because there's several. I mean, because you ask yourself, what was Obi-Wan doing all these years on Tatooine? Well, you know, I'm sure that people were hunting down Force-sensitive children, Force-sensitive people. And, you know, I mean, in one instance, Darth Maul found out where Obi-Wan was at. And he realized that, wait a minute, the chosen one, you know, Luke Skywalker. So, of course, Reva finds that out too. This is the other question too, before he wraps it up later. But Reva, of course, she's on the ground, impaled, tries to reach for her saber, and then over there she finds a communicator which was dropped during the escape, you know, on the transport, and got stepped on. So the communication was not very clear, but when she turned it on, there was enough information to talk about the children going back to Tatooine. You know, Senator Organa's talking about going back to Tatooine to watch over the boy, and it mentions Owen, which Reva knows Owen because she kind of interrogated him in front of a crowd, saying, you know, are you holding Jedis? Are you hiding them? And so now I want to ask you this. Do you think Reva at the point where she still wants to, I mean, Vader wants nothing to do with her anymore. So that's a done deal. Okay. And I mean, of course, I get this feeling that she's going to survive because they do this cliffhanger where she's looking at the communication disc, you know, whatever you call that. And she finds out, you know, where the boy is located at. So what do you think is going to be
a very good, entry point for what Dan was talking about for, you know, Darth Maul to enter the story?
Well, it could be
because, she's so hell bent on vengeance and everything else. So if she now knows that, Anakin has a child, I'm going after his child.
My goodness.
That's how she's going to take her vengeance. And so, how does she get there? How does she go about all that after being injured and everything else? Maybe Darth Maul shows up. Somehow she gets in contact with him or something else. They show up together. Now you have the third sister and Maul, sitting there with, fighting Obi-Wan. Or,
that's a brilliant observation.
Something weird like that.
Brilliant observation. I didn't even think about the angle of being Anakin's son and having revenge on Anakin and taking out the son. I didn't even see that angle of it. Brilliant.
Not only that, she heard the children, plural.
There's two. Leia. I think she figured out that Leia too, and that was the disturbance that Obi-Wan felt whenever they were on the transporter.
Yeah,
because he stopped and he was like, kind of had this look on his face, like,
yes, exactly,
something's not right in the Force, and I think that's what it was.
That's awesome. I tell you what, overall, I have enjoyed the series. Everyone I've talked to says episode 5 it was just amazing. And I've actually watched it twice already, and I want to watch it a third time. It was so good. But and I look forward to next week. Folks, we come on every Friday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time on Fridays. This past month we've been covering the Kenobi series. My good friend, Mr. Ricky Pope, should be back with us next week. My padre, my buddy, he should be back, and we'll be going over episode 6, and I look forward to that. We might even invite some of our friends back so we can have a look at the entire series if they want to come back on. And I don't know. I've been really enjoying the series. This podcast throughout the series has been fun. I really appreciate you guys coming on and giving me a hand while Mr. Pope is out taking care of some family things. Guys are welcome back anytime to shoot me a message. And I don't want to make sure we miss anything for our audience. Any comments we have out there.
There's a whole conversation going on about why between Jerry and Dan about why Vader burned Obi-Wan and whether or not that had any repercussions going forward.
Interesting.
Jerry had some interesting points about how one of the reasons that Vader develops this tunnel vision, if I guess would be a good way of describing it, is because he's so arrogant. This is coming from Jerry's comments.
Yeah,
he's so arrogant in his power, and one of the reasons he's arrogant, and Jerry, I hope I do a good job of summarizing for you, is that it comes so easy to him, and he hasn't had to have the discipline to learn it that most Jedis have to go through to master the power. For him, it's just raw.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have to make any effort to do it, so to speak. And I think that's pretty much what.
That's a good comment. I want to say thank you to our audience, especially Jerry and Dan. Thank you for coming on and giving us a hand on the show. Awesome comments, questions, and corrections. I appreciate it anytime. Please come back anytime and join our show. Again, we are on 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time every Friday. We also have an audio podcast of the show releases on Tuesday on any of your preferred streaming services, anywhere you can find podcasts, any medium, Spotify, Apple, we're there. So anyway, I think that's about it. I think we've done all we can with the Back to Tank. I think we're finally we're going to wrap it up, folks. Any last words?
No. It's it's amazing. It's only getting better. I'm excited for next week.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining again. Please check us out. We're on speakingnerdy.com. There you can get all our YouTube videos, so you can also watch us live on, well, you can watch our shows on YouTube. You can also listen to our audio podcast. All our information, Facebook, Instagram, all our stuff, location and links is on speakingnerdy.com. So check it out. We even have a little store there if you want to buy anything there for your daddy this Sunday. Who's your daddy? And yeah, that's it. So thank you guys for joining, and I think it's time to let the magical outro begin. This was a Speaking Nerdy podcast. My name is Mike Schilling, and filling in for my compadre, Mr. Ricky Pope, is the Florida man, Todd B. and Darryl McCarty. Thank you guys for joining the show. That was pretty good. That was good. I mean, you know, I mean, I didn't have any gas during the show, so that was good. That worked out well for me. And you know, I mean, Todd, you didn't have any Tourette's this time, so I think that's awesome. And Darryl, well, you didn't take your shirt off and show off your bod, so I think we went well.
Right? Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I think would have helped our ratings. But
I think so too.
It might.
Yeah.
Can you